Imagine living in a world where your deepest desires are in constant conflict with your greatest fears. You long for connection, yet you build walls to keep it at bay. You yearn for intimacy, but the vulnerability it requires feels like stepping into a storm without shelter. This paradox defines the avoidant, a soul simultaneously drawn to and terrified by the power of love. But here's the intriguing part: avoidants are not aimless in their attachments. No, they fixate on a very specific type of partner. Someone who possesses qualities that both challenge and soothe them. Someone who, knowingly or not, holds the key to their transformation. If we understand why, we uncover not just their patterns, but a profound truth about human relationships. And if we dare to confront this truth, we unlock not only the potential to heal the avoidant, but also the ability to strengthen our own connections. This is not just a lecture on psychology. This is a call to see beyond the walls people build and recognize the power we have to connect if we're willing to learn the language of the heart. We are creatures bound by paradox, and nowhere is this more evident than in the realm of avoidance. Picture the heart of an avoidant individual. A fortress fortified by fear, but illuminated by the faint glow of longing. They crave intimacy, yet the moment it approaches, their instincts scream retreat. It is a tormenting dance, as old as humanity itself, and it echoes the ancient struggle between the yearning for Eden and the dread of the exile that followed. The avoidant does not avoid out of malice or indifference. They avoid because the stakes feel impossibly high. To love is to risk exposure, stand vulnerable in the presence of another. It is an act of faith, much like Abraham raising his hand over Isaac, not knowing what the outcome will demand. The avoidant fears this vulnerability because to them, it feels like handing over the keys to their soul and hoping the other won't lock them out or tear them apart. Their avoidance is not rejection. It is self-preservation. And yet self-preservation at this level isolates them from the very thing they need most: connection. Why then do they yearn so desperately for closeness? Why does their heart race when the prospect of a safe and understanding partner enters their life? It is because in the depths of their being they know that isolation is not freedom, it is a cage, and every human heart, no matter how walled off, seeks liberation. This is why fear and desire can exist within the same soul. Fear guards the gates, but desire whispers from the depths of the inner sanctum. The avoidance life is a constant tension between these forces, and this tension shapes their every action. It is written that perfect love casts out fear, but what the avoidant does not yet grasp is that love is not perfect from the start. It is forged in the furnace of trust, trial, and time. To the avoidant, love feels like a battlefield. They approach it cautiously, expecting to lose their sense of self in the process. But this is a misconception born of past wounds that taught them that love equals control, that vulnerability leads to betrayal. They carry these scars like heavy chains, unaware that the person on the other side of the connection may hold not a whip, but a balm. This paradox is not merely a personal dilemma. It is a mirror reflecting the broader human condition. We avoid what we need because what we need often requires us to face our fears. The avoidant may fixate on a partner not because they are safe from fear, but because that partner embodies the potential to overcome it. Like the disciples following Christ into the storm-tossed sea, the avoidant clings to the hope that the fear they feel can be stilled not by fleeing, but by standing firm and allowing the winds to pass. The task then is not to eliminate the fear, but to acknowledge it and step forward anyway. Fear and desire are not enemies. They are two sides of the same coin, driving the avoidant toward the path of growth and redemption. There is a mysterious power in emotional security, a quiet strength that draws others near, not through force, but through the sheer gravity of stability. To the avoidant, this power is both captivating and unsettling, for it represents something they cannot quite grasp yet deeply crave. A secure partner is not swayed by the emotional storms of others. They are anchored, steady, and unshakable. Their presence is like a lighthouse, offering clarity in the chaos. And for the avoidant, whose inner world is often tumultuous, this is irresistible. It is no coincidence that the emotionally secure embody the traits avoidants are most drawn to. These individuals carry an aura of peace, not because life is without challenges, but because they have learned to navigate their inner chaos without succumbing to it. They are compassionate without being consumed, assertive without being overbearing, and most critically, they do not demand the avoidant to be anything other than they are. This lack of demand is not indifference, it is understanding. It says, I see your walls, and I am not afraid of them. I will not tear them down, but I will stand here unwavering until you are ready to open the gates. This dynamic mirrors the parable of the prodigal son. The father does not chase after the son in desperation, but waits patiently, prepared to receive him with open arms when he returns. The secure partner, like that father, provides a haven of acceptance, a place where the avoidant can begin to confront the fears that have kept them running. In this, the secure partner is not just a person, they are a symbol of redemption, of grace extended without expectation of immediate change. But let us be clear, this is no easy task for the avoidant. The stability of a secure partner exposes the chaos within. It is as if a bright light has been cast into a dark room, illuminating the clutter and disarray that had previously been hidden. This can feel overwhelming, even threatening, for it forces the avoidant to confront the truth they have worked so hard to avoid, that their independence is often a mask for their fear. And yet, the secure partner does not flee from this revelation. They remain embodying a love that is not conditional on immediate perfection, but is committed to the process of growth. This patience, this resilience is transformative. It begins to shift the avoidant's understanding of relationships. What was once seen as a trap becomes a refuge. What was feared as a loss of self becomes an invitation to discover a deeper, truer self-own that can coexist with another without dissolving. The secure partner teaches not through words, but through their unwavering presence, demonstrating that love is not something to be feared, but something that can liberate. And so, the avoidant, though drawn in by this magnetic quality, must wrestle with their own resistance. It is a journey akin to Jacob wrestling with the Angela struggle that leaves them transformed, though not without scars. Yet in that transformation lies the promise of something greater, a connection that transcends fear, rooted in a love that does not waver in the face of vulnerability. Control is the fortress of the avoidant, the great illusion they cling to in a desperate bid to protect themselves from the chaos of intimacy. But what is control really? It is not strength. It is not mastery. It is fear wrapped in the guise of power, a shield wielded not to face the world, but to keep it at bay. The avoidant does not seek control because they are inherently selfish or unfeeling. They seek it because they equate loss of control with vulnerability. And vulnerability, in their eyes, is a door left open to pain. But consider this. To insist on control in every aspect of a relationship is to sacrifice its very essence. True connection requires surrender, a terrifying word for the avoidant. Yet surrender is not defeat, it is an act of faith. Faith that the other will not wield your vulnerability against you, that love will not dissolve into betrayal the moment you release your grip. This is the great dilemma of the avoidant. To relinquish control feels like stepping into the lion's den, but to maintain it is to shut out the possibility of genuine connection. The need for control often manifests subtly. It is the carefully timed withdrawal when emotions run too high. It is the strategic silence, the calculated distance, the refusal to let another draw too near. These actions are not random, they are deliberate efforts to manage risk, to ensure that no one gets close enough to see the fractures beneath the surface. But in this attempt to control the narrative, the avoidant often sabotages the very intimacy they yearn for. They create walls where bridges could be built, mistaking solitude for safety. Yet even the strongest walls cannot silence the whispers of the heart. The avoidant knows, deep down, that control is a fragile construct. Life is too unpredictable, too full of variables for anyone to maintain complete control. Relationships are not equations to be solved. They are living, breathing entities that thrive on trust, adaptability, and mutual surrender. And here lies the crux. Control may keep pain at a distance, but it also keeps joy, love, and connection locked away. The scriptures speak of the one who seeks to save their life and in doing so loses it. This is the plight of the avoidant. In their efforts to save themselves from the perceived chaos of relationships, they risk losing the very life-giving intimacy they were created for. Control may feel like a lifeline, but it is a chain that must be broken if they are to experience the freedom of authentic connection. But breaking that chain is not an act of destruction. It is an act of courage. It is the courage to step out of the boat and into the stormy waters, trusting that they will not sink. It is the courage to believe that love is not a predator, but a sanctuary. And it is the courage to face the truth that control is not the answer to fear. Surrender is. Only by relinquishing control can the avoidant discover the profound strength that comes not from holding tight, but from letting go. Unmet childhood needs shape the soul, like unseen currents carve the shoreline. These are the forces that sculpt the contours of a person's emotional world, often without their awareness, leaving behind patterns that dictate how they navigate love, trust, and connection. For the avoidant, these patterns are rooted in wounds, unhealed and often unacknowledged, that whisper lies about their worth and the dangers of intimacy. Imagine a child who learns too early that their emotions are burdensome, that their cries for comfort are met with indifference, irritation, or even hostility. What does that child conclude about the world? They come to believe that safety lies not in connection, but in self-reliance. They learn to suppress their needs, to shield their vulnerability, to carry the weight of their pain in silence. This child grows up, but the lessons remain. They become an adult who avoids the very intimacy they crave because it feels like a risk they cannot afford to take. This is not a failure of character. It is a survival mechanism born out of necessity in a world that failed to nurture them as they deserved. Yet what begins as a strategy for survival becomes a prison. The avoidant carries these early wounds into adulthood, reenacting them in their relationships without even realizing it. They retreat when closeness feels too much, not because they do not care, but because caring feels like a threat to the fragile equilibrium they've built. Consider the biblical story of Hagar in the wilderness. Abandoned, desperate, she believes she is unseen and forgotten. But then comes the voice of God, I see you. This is what the avoidant at their core longs for, to be seen, truly seen without judgment or demand. Yet their unmet childhood needs have taught them that to be seen is to be exposed, to risk rejection or pain. So they hide even from those who long to see them fully and love them deeply. But wounds do not have the final word. Healing is possible, though it requires courage and a willingness to confront the truths that have been buried for so long. The avoidant must face the memories of their unmet needs, not to dwell in the pain of the past, but to understand how it shapes their present. This is no easy task. It is a journey akin to Jacob wrestling with the Angela struggle that leaves them transformed, though not without scars. And here lies the paradox. The very vulnerability they fear is the key to their healing. By opening themselves, even in small, tentative ways, they begin to rewrite the narrative. They learn that not all intimacy is dangerous, that not every cry for connection will be met with rejection. This requires trust, not just in others, but in the belief that they are worthy of love, that their needs are not burdens, but gifts, invitations to deepen the bond between souls. The avoidance task, then, is to unlearn the lies their unmet needs taught them and to embrace the truth. That connection is not a threat, but a sanctuary. It is in this sanctuary that they will find the freedom to love and be loved, not as a means of survival, but as a reflection of the divine design for human relationships. Stability is the silent song every heart longs to hear, and yet for the avoidant, this yearning is buried beneath layers of fear and mistrust. Deep within, they ache for a foundation that will not shift, a connection that does not demand their surrender but invites it. This yearning is not weak. It is profoundly human. It is the echo of Eden, where humanity walked in perfect harmony with its creator, unburdened by shame, unbroken by fear. The avoidant, though they would never admit it outright, carries within them the same yearning. But instead of drawing near to stability, they often push it away, terrified of what its presence might demand. What is this stability they crave yet resist? It is not the rigidity of control, but the steady rhythm of a relationship built on trust and consistency. It is the quiet assurance that they will not be abandoned in their most vulnerable moments, that they will not be punished for showing the cracks in their armor. For the avoidant, this stability is both a promise and a challenge. It promises a reprieve from the endless cycle of withdrawal and loneliness, but it also challenges the narratives they have clung, narratives that tell them intimacy is dangerous, that dependence is weakness, that love is a game of survival where the safest move is to never play at all. Consider the words of Christ in Matthew 7. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and when the storm came, it did not fall. Stability is the rock upon which healthy relationships are built. But the avoidant, like the foolish man, has often built their house on the shifting sands of fear and self-reliance. When the storm of intimacy approaches, they feel their foundation tremble, and in their panic they retreat. Yet, what they fail to see is that the storm is not their enemy, it is their opportunity. The storm reveals the weakness of their foundation, not to condemn them, but to invite them to rebuild on something stronger. This rebuilding is no simple task. It requires the avoidant to confront the wounds and lies that have shaped their view of relationships. It requires them to take small, deliberate steps toward trust, even when every instinct screams to pull away. And it requires them to recognize that stability is not something they must create alone. It is something that is offered to them in the form of a secure partner, a loving friend, a compassionate community. But stability does not mean perfection. It does not mean the absence of conflict or challenge. It means the presence of grace, the willingness to stay when things get hard, the commitment to repair what has been broken instead of walking away. This is what the avoidant truly longs for, even if they cannot yet name it. They long for a love that does not waver, a foundation that holds steady even when they feel like falling apart. And here is the great irony. The stability they seek in others is also the stability they must cultivate within themselves. For a relationship to thrive, both individuals must become rocks for one another, steadfast, reliable, unshaken by the storms that inevitably come. This is the journey of the avoidant, to move from fear to faith, from resistance to embrace, from isolation to the profound joy of a love that endures. Bridging the gap between avoidance and meaningful connection begins with the recognition that transformation is a path, not a destination reached overnight. It is a process that demands courage, patience, and the humility to face uncomfortable truths. The avoidant, entrenched in their patterns of retreat and self-protection, must learn to walk this path one step at a time, guided by the understanding that love is not an enemy, but a profound gift, a reflection of the divine capacity for redemption and renewal. The first step is awareness, for no journey begins without recognizing the terrain. The avoidant must come to see their patterns not as immutable traits, but as responses rooted in pain. This is not a task of self-judgment, but of self-discovery. They must ask themselves difficult questions. Why do I fear intimacy? What wounds am I protecting? What would it mean to risk vulnerability? These are questions that cut to the heart of the matter, exposing the lies that have held them captive and revealing the truths they must embrace. Once awareness dawns, the next step is intentionality. Relationships do not thrive by accident. They require effort and a commitment to growth. The avoidant must take deliberate actions to challenge their instincts to withdraw. This might mean expressing feelings they would normally suppress, staying in conversations that feel uncomfortable, or simply allowing someone to step closer when every fiber of their being urges them to push away. These are not grand gestures, but small, consistent acts of trust acts that build the bridge from isolation to connection, brick by brick. But intentionality must be paired with grace, both for themselves and for others. The avoidant will stumble, they will falter, they will retreat when they should lean in, close off when they should open up. This is not failure, it is human. Growth is rarely a linear path, and transformation is never without struggle. They must learn to forgive themselves for their missteps and to extend the same forgiveness to those who walk this journey with them. For just as they are learning to connect, so too are their partners, friends, and loved ones learning how to meet them where they are. The third step is to cultivate security not just in their relationships, but within themselves. The avoidant often places the burden of safety on others, seeking reassurance that their vulnerability will not be exploited. But true security comes not from external validation, but from an internal sense of worth. This is the work of self-reflection, of identifying the lies they have believed about themselves and replacing them with truths rooted in love and dignity. It is the work of standing firm in the knowledge that they are not only worthy of love, but capable of giving it. Finally, the avoidant must embrace the unpredictability of connection. Love is not a formula, it is a mystery. It cannot be controlled or contained, only entered into with faith and openness. This is the great leap, the moment when the avoidant steps beyond their fears and into the unknown, trusting that the risk is worth the reward. And it is in this leap that they discover the profound beauty of connection, a beauty that transcends fear, redeems pain, and reveals the depths of what it means to truly be human. And so, the journey of the avoidant is not just a path toward othersit, it is a journey back to themselves, a reclamation of the parts they have hidden away out of fear and pain. To walk this road is to acknowledge the wounds that shaped them, to challenge the walls they built in response, and to step into the light of vulnerability where healing begins. It is not an easy path. It demands courage to face what has been buried, patience to unlearn what has long been believed, and faith to trust in the power of connection. But the reward for this journey is immeasurable. It is the discovery that love is not a battlefield, but a sanctuary, that stability is not an illusion, but a foundation, and that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a bridge to the most profound depths of human experience. The avoidant, like all of us, longs for meaning, for intimacy, for the assurance that they are not alone. And the truth is, they never were. Their struggle is not unique, but universal, a reflection of the human condition, where fear and hope are ever intertwined. Let us remember that transformation is not about perfection, but progress. It is about taking the small, brave steps each day that move us closer to the relationships we were created for. It is about learning to surrender control, to trust in stability, to confront the unmet needs of the past without letting them dictate the future. And it is about embracing the mystery of love with open hands and an open heart, knowing that though it may not always be easy, it is always worth it.